Hello, everyone. Today I'm joined by my brother Gil Hodges to talk about his upcoming book, Choice. Hi, Gil.
Hey, Nelson, thank you. Thanks for having me on. This is going to be fun, I think.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about your book. I've already had you on to talk about you, so it's your book's turn.
Yeah, so I mean, actually, for me, this book is kind of what I would. I got a feeling it's going to be my legacy. What I would want to leave behind. Not that I'm going anywhere, but but just something that I put together. So many things that I've learned over the last 5 to 10 years that have brought me to a much happier walk with Christ than ever before. And to put it all into one book has been really powerful. And so the entire title is Choice, and then the tagline is the most powerful thing in the universe. Dot 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 next to God. And the book starts off, the first chapter where I share a vision that Father took me on, where he basically shows me how choice was his greatest sacrifice. For him to give choice meant that he had to give everything that he created the ability to choose, which meant giving everything the ability to reject him and resist him for eternity, because he will not violate our choice. Now, he's a great chess player. I mean, he may do things that are going to kind of move and shift things around so he gets us to make choices in a specific direction, but we can harden our heart. We can harden our heart and come directly against him. And I mean, I don't want to do that, but we can do it. And I think we've all done it to some degree at some point. But so I cover so many different things in the book, but one thing when I've been in groups with people talking to them, groups of Christians, I'll say, I'm going to say two things, and you're all going to agree with these two things that I share until we dig in. And then you're going to start backpedaling. And so I share with them these two ideas that number one, God is all powerful. And they're like, oh, yeah, absolutely. God is all powerful. Great. And then I say, God is love. And they're like, yes, of course. I mean, that's just crazy. Why wouldn't we believe that? I mean, we're Christians, right? I'm like, okay, so you believe that God is all powerful. So can he save everyone? And usually the answer is, well, no, because that's up to people's choice. Like, huh. So he's really not all powerful because he can't save everyone. And we can go down a whole list of things. And then if people really believe in the idea of that God's going to burn you in hell, well, ask any human being that's made in the image of God that loves their children and ask them, if your children was really just the most, terrible person, would you burn them and burn them and burn them? Would you just set them in a fire, burn them at the stake? Would you do that? And would you set it up so that the fire would never go out and they just are constantly tortured and tortured? Would you do that? And, just about every human being is going to say no. Anybody in their right mind is going to say, no, I wouldn't do that. So then, if God is all love, why would you place that on him? And we can go again down a whole litany of things where people's beliefs, on one hand, don't match up with their actions and how they really, live their life.
Yeah, the
So,
construct doesn't hold up against a loving and powerful God once it's
yeah.
tried against that same God.
Yeah. Yeah, so one of the things that people will say is like, "Well, but people have choice, so they can choose to resist God." And I'm like, "Absolutely, 100%. Absolutely." So God is love, and he's given you choice. That's his power. He gave you choice, and he's determined, I'm pretty sure, not to take that choice away, because if he takes that choice away, now there's no more room or place for love. Love can't exist where there is no choice. So I can't see, or I usually ask the question, well, when do you think God takes away choice? At what point? Does he take it away here in this life and just says enough is enough? You're going to be stuck where you're at and you can never change? Or is it taken away after we die? Or is it taken away, if you go into hell, you take it away then? I mean, it's like, it really doesn't compute or make sense that God would take choice away if you go into hell, because then what's the purpose? There's no the justice in burning someone in hell forever for the sake of burning them there when they have, it's just like as if he, created them for that purpose, that very purpose, just to
Yeah.
burn them in hell forever. And that's fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
It's
loving
like you
God.
don't get a loving God, you get a sadist.
Right. Right. So I
Who's
mean,
just like, I made you this way, and I have determined that what you're gonna end up doing, against your will, by the way, I'm gonna make you do this, create you this way, and then I'm gonna punish you for it forever.
yeah,
Right.
it is the most bizarre thing, but it's what we've been programmed with. And that's actually the second chapter in my book is called Challenges to Choices. And the challenges to choices are the programming that we all receive from, the day we come into this world. We're conceived and in the womb, we're already getting messages from our parents, in the womb. And then we're, obviously we're born into this family, and this family trains us and programs us the way that they think is right. And as many of us who have come from some really dysfunctional families, we realize, oh, everything my parents taught me is not really the truth or correct or the best way to live. It's programming. You got your church that does it, you got your religious communities that do it, you've got your town communities, and you've got your country communities. You know, how many people in this nation of ours in America think that America is the best and greatest nation? Go over to Russia, and how many think Russia's the best and greatest nation? It's programming.
Wherever I am is the best.
Exactly. So it's really programming. Now, if you talk to somebody who's been through satanic ritual abuse, that's some pretty serious programming. And now many of those will feel like they don't have choice because of their programming. But the one thing that I assure, and I go into it deeply into my book, is that everybody always, always has choice. We may not like some of the consequences to our choices that we have to take, but we always have choice. And even when it's buried under all that programming, we are still choosing to go with the programming, even though we may not even recognize it or know it at the moment. But once we become aware, and it's like an epiphany. For me, it was an epiphany. It really was, to realize, wait a minute, I've got this power of choice. And
Yeah.
Jesus says in Luke 10:19 that I've given you all power and authority over the enemy. Well, if that's true, then what in the world am I doing letting the enemy have any part of my life? Because I can choose not to. I can choose against it. But most
Yeah.
of us have been programmed just to receive it.
Yeah. And then even just talking about that programming, something I've been studying a bit more lately has been epigenetics.
Yeah.
How literally the record that comes from our ancestors is a physical thing, not a
Mhm.
psychological thing, not even a spiritual thing, but it's something, it's chemical information in our bodies that tells us to behave a certain way, which
Yeah.
is why I believe the born again experience is so important, is so that you can start over
Yeah. Yeah.
from your cellular information. It gives you a fresh start on your programming.
Your whole body is a memory of history clear back to Adam and Eve and wherever that all goes. There you can Google this. There's a study that was, where they were kind of going through and trying to determine, all right, what's the best source that we can save things on and have it keep around the longest? And you know what the best source is right now? It's just good old fashioned paper. Because we've got the Dead Sea Scrolls and things of that nature that we found, that are 2,000 years old, and stones are obviously a little bit longer. But so the scientists went through this process of trying to determine what could they begin saving information on that would hold it the longest. And crystals are amazing. Crystals, they found, they believe that they could save information on crystals approximately up to 10,000 years. That's really powerful. But again, you can find it on Google. What they found to be the most powerful and longest lasting is DNA. And they were saying that, your DNA could save it for 1,000,000 years. And they actually have, and again, it's on Google, they have recorded video onto DNA and been able to play it back. So our DNA is full of the entire history of whatever influence we had, from, our bloodline all the way back. And so that's all in you. It's all
Hmm.
in you. It's all programming that is in you. And so, yes, yeah, we need that fresh start. We need that experience of being able to wash it all in the blood of Jesus and
Yeah.
have a fresh start. It's good.
And I believe even that goes into the restoration of all things, because if you're carrying that much information, even that to get rid of the junk and keep the valuables.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the other thing about that, and again, you can Google it, but a 3 foot block. If you took a 3 foot block of DNA, human DNA, that would be enough. A 3 foot block would hold all the information the world has to offer. And I think we're all kind of close to that 3 foot block when you think about it. If you kind of crammed yourself into a box, that's about how much space we each carry. So anyway, I just found all that very interesting looking at that a
Yeah.
few years ago.
Now, something that I'd love for you to go in a bit on. I had a conversation with someone a few days ago. Someone reached out to me and asked me a question, and it goes right in line with it seems that your book is about. They were asking me, what is your response when someone says that they don't or won't believe in God because he doesn't help in areas of like child abuse, famine, war? How can God exist if bad things happen? That whole topic.
Yeah.
And my response was, well, I'm gonna skip a bit, but one of my main responses was that free will is the ultimate evidence of a loving God. You can only have real love when it's a choice.
So good, man. Nailing it. Yeah. And that's so true. And so, you know, when Father when Father created everything and he gave everything the ability to choose, he gave it away. So he couldn't just create it and then just make it into slaves and robots and all that. That wouldn't ever bring back to him love and relationship. To have love and relationship, there has to be that choice. And so did God know that there would be some that would choose against him? I think he did. I think he,
Absolutely.
yeah. So bad things happen because people choose it. Bad things happen because things choose it. I believe that everything in the universe is alive to some degree or another because it's all energy, it's all frequency, it's all moving. It's got life and energy in it. So I personally believe that the entire universe has the ability to choose to one degree or another. I'm not going to get into that because I don't know anything more than that. That's just what I believe. When Jesus says the rocks would cry out, well, they didn't, but they could have. So they made a choice
Yeah.
not to.
I can even tell you a little bit of what I've studied on that. Nikola Tesla shared some of his research, and he made some bold statements that aren't as widely known as he is. And he said crystals are alive. He
Yeah.
called them organisms, living organisms. He said those things are alive.
Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely am convinced of it. And it says God is light. So there's your energy. It says God is spirit. It says God is love. So it's kind of like, you can put those three things. If God is love, then he's also light. If it's light, then it's also, what did I just, spirit. So if the universe is made of energy, light, then would that also mean, which I believe, that it's also made of a spirit? Everything's at its own level of spirit. And
Yeah.
now it says that God is love. And the Bible says that we are spirit and that we are light. The Bible says that, but it does not say anywhere that we are love. So my conclusion from that is that we are here to learn to love. We've
Hmm.
ventured into this journey to go through this space where we are learning to love through the power of choice. And we get challenged. And without the challenges, so why do bad things happen? I wouldn't say this is why they happen, but I would say that God takes everything and he turns it into good. So he takes every bad thing and every bad decision that anything or anybody makes, and he turns it back into good. Because if I understand that I'm here to learn to love, and let me back up a little bit, because in my book, I really focus on this, that there is only one place that you have full 100% control with your choice. and that is over how you respond to things, because I cannot control everything that happens to me. Now, as I learn the power of choice, I can begin to control it a little bit, but you've got a choice too. And someone could walk into my house with a gun, and things could go sideways. I can't necessarily control that, but I can control how I respond to that. I can control how I respond to the circumstances I see outside of me. And these are all opportunities to learn to love. Because every time I choose to respond in love, I am growing in love. And the last chapter of my book, or not the last one, second to last one, is being perfected in love for a perfect life. Perfected in love for a perfect life. Because once we become perfected in love, that's where I believe God's saying, here's the keys to the kingdom. And you've arrived in that Christ consciousness where Jesus was, where you are trustworthy, because now you have been operating and choosing to respond in love so much that it's become so habitual that there's really nothing that can shake you now off of that. And when you're there, I believe that's when we receive the full power and authority. Because if you're not there and he gave you that power and authority, you could get angry or do something you didn't mean to do because you're not quite mature yet, and you could destroy half the planet or the entire universe. Who knows? If you've got the power of God like Jesus had.
Yeah. And I believe that's really what dominion looks like, is being able to master your choices, master your space. Um, Something that I've taught on a bunch is that the human body itself, ignore the spirit, ignore the soul, but the human body itself is made like a radio. It's made like a cell tower, made to receive and release information, receive and release different forms of light. In fact, every form of light that exists in the world, really in any realm, also is a part of our bodies. But that's a whole nother topic. But our bodies are constantly releasing and receiving information. As you shared earlier, that the universe itself, reality itself, is made up of light. It's made up of frequency, energy, vibration. When you think, light comes out of your head. You're literally telling the world what to do, how to respond to you. And all of that light is trying its best to please all of us. So the journey in growing, at least, is to become such a powerful radio, a powerful speaker, that you have a greater influence over light than someone who doesn't yet possess that capability.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a difference in quantity. If you're thinking of how much power, how powerful your voice is, or how good you are at using your voice, it's ignorance versus revelation, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Where if I'm regularly exercising my thoughts, a great example, and he may have shared this on your show too, but Mike Parsons, he has this story that I love where he talks about teaching about angels at one of his meetings, and they got ready to leave that night, and the janitor or whoever was running the building locked the gate to the parking lot with all of them in it. So he came out and he's like, "What's going on?" It's like, "Oh, there's a padlock on the fence. We can't leave." And they're like, "Oh, we're gonna have to call that guy to come back up here. It's the middle of the night. It's rough." And he said he goes up to the gate and there's a car in the front, and it's uh pretty much a group of people who wouldn't be considered believers. And they're like, "Hey, you just talked a whole bunch about angels. Why don't you ask one of your angels to open the lock for us?" And he says, "Oh no, I'm gonna do it." So what? So he says he goes to the lock and just opens it. And the way he describes is that I decided that it was going to open for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That and that
Yeah.
learning how to live in reality in that space where you're taking responsibility for what's happening to you.
Yeah.
I may not be in control of what happens to you, but at the very least, I can begin to matter. I can begin to have some level of responsibility over what's happening to me and around me in
Amen.
that regard.
And that's so true, because I you know part of, again, in my book I talk about this, is like, you know, do you want to really focus on negative things? Because the more you focus on that frequency, the more you're going to draw it into yourself. And so if you want to take responsibility for some of the garbage that's happening in your life and not just say, woe is me, and just be a victim to it all, then you begin to exercise your power of choice to stop believing in that. So, the third chapter is agreement sets your path for life. So those things that you agree with, you're going to manifest those in your life. And maybe not 100%, but the more you focus on it, the longer you focus on it, the more of it you're going to get. Problem is, most humans, excuse me, most humans are caught up in the drama of life, and they love it. They love their news channels that are going to just give them drama, drama, drama. They love their shows and their movies that are just all about drama, where they get to live out their fantasy of living in a negative rage, where they get to just get revenge and just tear up the world. you know, it's like we're drawn to that. We're drawn to that. And yet, if we want to get rid of that, we need to stop focusing on it. We need to focus our energy on what we want, and begin to live out that timeline. Because I'm not an expert in the multiverse in any way, shape, or form, but I believe there's some reality to it, because there have been times where I've had just a picture in my mind of something about to happen, and I've learned to just say, no, I'm choosing this path, a different path from what I just saw. Because usually when I see something like that, it's a premonition of something that's about to happen that's not good, and I'm like, no, and I choose a different path. And when we start to realize we have that power of choice to choose things differently, more and more of that's going to manifest to where, yeah, we can walk up to a padlock and just have it unlock for us. We don't understand the power of frequencies. Everything in the universe is made of energy and a frequency. Even our thoughts, even our imagination. I call it the spirit at work, but even our imagination. So when I see myself into the kingdom of heaven, sitting on my throne next to Jesus in the throne room, I've really done it. I've teleported a form of myself in the form of energy, and it's just as real. In fact, Paul says it's more real than this realm. It's just as real. And I've done it. People talk about, taking this body. Well, like, this is kind of slow trying to take this body everywhere. Use your spirit and engage in those places where you want to go. You can engage on the other side of the planet. You can engage on the other side of the universe. You can engage in the heavens. You can engage in other realms. But that's your ability to choose to move that energy into that realm. And we already know that our thoughts have an energy to them. Our imagination has a different frequency. It's all very real. Scientifically, we haven't been able to really prove all of it, but actually there is some scientific evidence for it. So I just think we're going to discover more as we keep going.
One of my favorite teachers on that topic, I consider him an apostle. I consider him a son, even though that verbiage wasn't used at the time when he was actually in ministry. It's Neville Goddard.
Yeah.
That is his message, is that your imagination is God. Not
Yeah.
diminishing the imagination, but making God that close.
Yeah. Yeah, and we could go down that road, but and it's fascinating. I love to have these conversations, but that would be a whole nother road that I didn't write about in my book. But so I'll just well, we already kind of covered good God, bad God. That's another chapter. Choosing the good life. Uh, that I spent 10 chapters on. Choosing the good life. I'll just run through them really quickly, the different chapter headings, but it's all choosing a good life, and it's choosing joy. Like, do you realize you can choose joy when you're in a grumpy mood? You want to stay there? You like being grumpy? Why not choose to get out of it? And there are physical things you can do. There are a lot of different things you can do just to step out of the grumpiness or the negativity and choose joy. You are the one that's responsible for choosing that. And so I choose joy. I just, I don't see any reason not to. And then choosing to give the benefit of the doubt. So many people in this world right now, because of the drama, they want to be skeptical and cynical of anything and everything. It's like, sure, if you want that negative energy, go ahead, bring it on. But I'm going to choose to give the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to choose to believe that my Father has good things, and that whatever was just shared with me, no matter how crazy it might have seemed, and crazy good, I'm going to choose to give it the benefit of the doubt until something, shows me directly that it's not a good thing. Then okay, I'll back away. But I'd rather live in joy and in the benefit of the doubt rather than being scared of everything that's happening around me and wondering, that person's out to get me, that one's out to get me, everything's out to get me. I don't want to be in that. And I get to choose not to. So, and then choosing to respond in love. Talked about that a little bit already. To me, that's why I believe, the biggest power we have in choice is choosing to respond in love, choosing to let go and forgive. That's a whole area of people wonder why God says he's not going to let us into the kingdom of heaven unless we forgive. He says, yeah, I won't forgive you unless you forgive others. And it makes sense when you begin to understand that forgiveness is letting go. Forgiveness is, if you do me wrong, then I have to be willing to let that go, completely let it go, to where there is no desire for retaliation or revenge in me whatsoever. No, no, nothing in me that wants a payback of any sort. Because if I don't, and Father says, "Go ahead, jump into the kingdom," and I come into the kingdom, and I find that person who's done me wrong, and it just flares up in me because I haven't forgiven them, and I punch them in the face. Yeah, not going to happen in the kingdom. So unless I'm willing to forgive and let go of those things, Father can't forgive and let me go into the kingdom. So, is there a hell? Is there a purgatory? I tend to think there is a purgatory type environment, which for some people might feel like a mental hell, but at the same time, it's just the training of God, the fire of God, that is going to purify us and get us to the place where we are ready to step into the kingdom. But that's the journey I believe that everybody's going to be on, even though they may choose to resist God for a million years or a billion years. They have that right, they have that ability. But God is love, and love never fails. It's like, at what point would God stop pursuing you? I mean, think of the prodigal son, and the 99. God doesn't stop with 99; He goes after the last one. It's like, when does love fail? When does it finally say, I've had enough? That guy's just no good. Just get rid of him. Just leave him out there. When does love do that? And it doesn't. So even though we have the right and the ability to resist him forever, I would venture very strongly to say that we won't. That whether it's an hour or a billion years, Father will eventually be able to reason with us and help us understand that he loves us, we are cared for, he wants our best, and that we are safe. That's the thing. I mean, to me, it's really the only reason people rejected God in the first place, is because they've been programmed to think that he's not safe, that he's not good, and that he has it out for them, and they want nothing to do with him because of those things. But when we finally realize, oh, I had it wrong, God is love, and even all those bad things that happened, he was always there with me, and he's always been there to bring me through them, to get me to the place where now I'm ready for the kingdom. That's the all-powerful loving God.
Yeah. Like you mentioned the lake of fire, the purifying fire type experience. This is something I talk about a lot now, just because I realize it's a necessary conversation to have, especially in the time that we're in. Um, the e- like even in the Bible, the phrasing lake of fire is more of a mistranslation than anything. It fits better with refiner's crucible, which is a term used in metallurgy. It's a crucible is the pot that you melt metals in. So it's really kind of describing the process of purifying gold, where you
Yeah.
throw it into this flaming hot pot and you throw in salt and sulfur to extract the lead and the other impurities out of it. And then
Yep.
what this word that got translated into torment was just touchstone, which is the stone that you use to strike and test the purity of the gold before it's done. And that which was translated as forever and ever, everlasting, and or
Tormented.
sometimes eternal,
Mm-hmm.
just meant age of ages, which is as long as it takes.
Yep.
But in context, it's as long as it takes for that thing to become pure. And it's not presented as torture, it's presented as a bath.
Yeah. And to me, that verse, I'm trying to remember which one it is, Revelation. Do you remember what the address was? I don't. But that verse is one of the most beautiful verses in the Bible when you truly understand what's going on. It's one of the most beautiful and powerful verses of the Bible. And it's been flipped upside down to be one of the most horrible verses when you believe in hell. That this is what, anyone who doesn't agree with me usually is the real, the pastor or the person who really wants their revenge on the person who doesn't believe the way they do. Unfortunately, it's been, what religion's become is, hell is a great place to send you when you don't believe the way I do.
Yeah.
And it's my revenge against you, really,
Yeah.
versus being what it really is, which is a place of purification, beautification, glorification.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing, and yet it's been so mistranslated. It's
Yeah.
terrible.
Because even that preaches the hopeful message that is the restoration of all things. It is a verse in Revelation which talks about Satan and his fallen angels being thrown into that same lake of fire. So it doesn't
Yeah,
even look like God gave up on them.
exactly. Here's the thing: is Satan and those who followed him, they all fell. They fell from being in a high place, and they fell. How did they fall? They chose to.
Hmm.
If they chose to fall, and God's not eliminated or annihilated them by now, that to me is a pretty good indication that Father is not taking away their freedom of choice, and that His plan is to restore them. And that means eventually, because again, if God cannot restore Satan, and I know this is really going off in the deep end for a lot of people. I'm glad that there's no stones that can come through the camera. But if he can't restore Satan, guess what? He's not all powerful.
Yeah, he's not good at his job.
Yeah. And
We
so,
found
I usually,
something that love can't conquer.
exactly. Yeah. So I usually ask in a group, I said, well, how many here think you're pretty smart? And might get a few hands. How many think you could win an argument with God? Seriously, win an argument with God? Do you think you're smarter than God? And usually, anybody who's being real, they're going to say no. No, I can't win an argument with God. I'm not smarter than him. They'll say that. But then it's like, okay, so if you and God were to sit down, let's just say you're Adolf Hitler or somebody just really, labeled as being evil and mean, and you sit down with God, do you think, any of them, do you think they could win an argument with God? Any argument? Usually, no, they can't. All right, so how long would it take God to reason with you or with them to where they finally is able to win them over and convince them that they are loved, they are safe, and they're now purified and ready to enter into the kingdom? Because if he can't, he's not all powerful. Bottom line. So that really tweaks people because, by this point, what most people are battling with is their own ego and their own belief system that they've been taught. And I was there for decades, in a very conservative denomination, believing that I was the only one that was right. And
Yeah.
but so that ego rises up, and it's like, no, I've got to be right. I've got to be right, because this is what they don't realize. It's their identity. Their identity is now wrapped up in what they believe or what they've been taught, which now they've really only been regurgitating and really haven't sat down to think about. So therefore, they're just going on what somebody else told them versus actually tearing down the building. And, I call it renovation, not deconstruction, but I call it renovation, where, you don't tear down the whole house. You leave the foundation. To me, Christ and the way, that's the foundation. And then wherever you can leave some things, leave it, but be willing to tear the whole thing down and to begin to rebuild with the truth that matches what you really say you believe. And that is going to be different than what most people think today. And again, is God all powerful? I mean, think about it, for crying out loud. He created the entire freaking universe, the entire thing, every planet. I mean, trillions of galaxies, and, and trillions of planets, and, all the way down to the trillions of cells that are in your body, and the trillions of intricate things that go on this planet just to have a perfectly working ecosystem. And to think that that could have all happened on by chance is just totally bizarre. But that he created all this, he created it all, and yet he can't sit down and reason with someone and bring them to a place where he can wash away all that anger with his perfected love. That's just bizarre to me that people would think that he's not powerful enough.
Yeah, and I believe part of that goes into our understanding of love. And I can personally say that up until this encounter I had with Holy Spirit a few months back, I didn't understand it as well as I do now either. And what Holy Spirit showed me in that sit down conversation when we were in the inner court, Holy Spirit described love as a fire, all consuming, all accepting, all transforming, purifying fire.
Yeah.
And Holy Spirit emphasized that it has to meet all of those criteria in order for it to be love. And that it has to be all accepting. It has to be all transforming. It
Yeah.
has to be all purifying. It has to be all consuming.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so good. So good. Well, I'll finish up with these chapters here. Choosing to let go of condemnation, judgment, and comparison. It's another thing that we do very naturally. So beginning to become aware of it and starting to let it go. And then thinking about and choosing what you want to believe. Because the bottom line is there's no proof for God. There's no proof that he doesn't exist or that he does exist. There's no proof. Lots of evidence. And it depends on what you want to look at, even at the evidence. And I went through a phase 20, 25 years ago where I literally tried to be an atheist, and that didn't work. So I started looking at other religions, and through it all, basically what I realized is that there's no proof that there's a God. There's no proof that there's not a God. And every religion has its holes. Every thought pattern has its holes. And the bottom line is every single one of us, whether we realize it or not, every single one of us, we choose what we're going to believe. The Muslim chooses to believe that Muslim is right, that Islam is right. The Hindu believes that Hinduism is right. The Christian believes that Christians, the atheist believes that what they think is right. And yet we all are simply choosing based on what we've been taught. And so for me, I just kind of looked at everything. It's like, what's going to be the best thing for humanity? Just to see humanity move forward. And when I kind of analyzed everything that every religion taught and so forth, it's like, hands down, Jesus teaches the best way. If we did what he taught, not what the churches are teaching, but if we did what he taught, it's like that's the best way. So in that sense, yes, I'm a Christian, but I'm not a Christian in the sense that I follow Christian denominations. I'm not there anymore. But so choosing to live a life of honor, choosing expectancy of all things to be good, choosing to give and receive. That's an interesting and deep one. Rather than trading, because trading is based off of no trust. Trading is the idea that I'll give you this if you give me that. I'll give you $5 if you give me that book. It's all based on trading versus giving and receiving. So, whole chapter devoted to that. Choosing your portals. We open portals all the time by our agreements. It's like, what portals do you really want to open? Because so often we're opening up portals that we don't want open, and yet we're not even thinking about it, but we're choosing to go down those paths, not knowing that we're opening up portals that are going to influence our life. And then dealing with your stuff, that's there's just so many people that have glaring things that they just don't want to address. It's like, well, why wouldn't you want to address those to have them removed so you can live an abundant life? So anyway, that's not all the chapters, but a lot there just on the idea of your power to choose. And it's phenomenal to me to think of how powerful your choice is and how powerful you are.
Yeah, it's sounds great so far. Um, Around what time do you have for your book coming out?
I'm shooting for October, between October 15 and October 21st. I'm shooting somewhere in there. We've still got to get it formatted, and got to get the cover even yet. But all the editing is done, um, and I'm doing something unique in this book. It was one of those drop-ins from the Father, but I got a meditation at the end of each chapter that people can read through just to kind of solidify what they just read, because I don't want it to be a book where people just, oh, that was great, that was so good, whatever, and then they put it on the shelf and it's never a thing. But rather, the meditations are going to help bring it into their being. And so I've got it written there, but I also am providing a QR code at the end of each chapter where, with their phone, they can just snap the QR code, and it's going to take them to a website or a video where I will lead them through a meditation via video. So
I
I
like
got to
that.
get those done yet. Yeah.
I like that. Using technology to be as effective as possible with sharing the message you've been given. I love that.
Yeah. And those I can keep up to date. So if I have some updates, I can take any one of those videos at any one of those chapters, and I can change it at any point. So even at the beginning, at the end, I've got something, so I can always add or update things. So yeah, I just said, thank you, Father. That's a good idea. So,
Let's see. All right. So, the last chapter you mentioned, dealing with your junk, as you said. Could you talk about that a little bit?
well, again, we tend to, as human beings, we want to ignore some things, and sometimes there's just stuff it's overwhelming, and there are some timing issues where maybe it is better to wait. Maybe God's got a better time for you to go through, um, some things you're dealing with, but why would anybody want to continue with something? It's like carrying baggage that's really heavy and it really hurts on your shoulders, and you choose just to keep carrying it when you could just put it down. Like, why? It's like, where it's so funny, but as human beings, we do it so often where we do things that are harming us or that are painful to us, not even realizing that we have the power and the choice to change it and not continue down that road. Now, and I would agree that there are times where it's probably beneficial to get some third party help, because maybe you're stuck. Maybe for whatever reason you're blocked and can't even hear Father in that area. So I just encourage everyone, do whatever it takes to get rid of the stuff that is not healthy for you. And sometimes it's not getting rid of anything, but it's getting healed, you know, parts and pieces of you that are, stuck in different areas of your life, and being willing to take the time to deal with those and to bring healing, I think is, again, if you want to live a good life, deal with it. Because otherwise you're just choosing to continue in the same muck and junk that you've been in. But we have the power to choose differently.
Yeah. My good friend, my brother, Dr. Andre Pfizer, he shares something often that I've loved, and it fits into that choice based reality thing. And it's about pretty much when people are ready to move, they move.
Yeah.
No sooner, no later. And in one of the stories he was telling me is that he was in a house, he was in an apartment he didn't want to be in. So he went and got him another place to stay. And though he was still paying the lease on the old apartment, he moved because he didn't want to be there anymore. And it
Yeah.
wasn't until he was completely fed up with the old that he fully embraced the new at
Yeah.
whatever expense.
Pain
And
versus gain. Yep.
yeah, and I believe we all reach that state in different areas of our lives where we're like, enough is enough here. I'm ready to move.
Yeah, yeah. But for me, I when I began to get some serious healing, for me it was through the courts of heaven. When I began to realize the power that had, it came to a point where I would sit in my meditation time and I'm like, "All right, Father, show me what's next." So it wasn't necessarily waiting for a pain point to get so irritating that I needed to work on it, but I was going to the Father and saying, "What else? What else you got? Show me. Judge me, show what's inside of me that's keeping me from living the abundant life." And I did that for probably a good year and a half, pretty consistently. But it was so worth it because I got through so much, and definitely not through everything, but it was just a really powerful time.
Yeah, and like I'm an advocate for that. Just self-awareness in that area
Yeah,
goes a long way.
yeah,
Realizing that I may still have some work to be done. At least being open to the conversation.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were certainly days where I would ask, what's next? What else? Judge me, Father, and I'd get nothing. In fact, there were times where just like, yeah, take a break. Just take a break. And I'm totally good with that. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of reminds me of someone my mom knew years ago, where she told my mom that she stopped going to church. She was like, "Well, why did you stop?" She said, "Well, something that happens a lot is that they do a lot of deliverance, and when they pray, we all throw up." And I stopped throwing up like a few months ago, so I think I'm good.
That's
It was
good.
like,
That
well,
is
can't
good.
argue with that.
Yeah, yeah, that is good. One more area, because I spend 2 chapters on this. Call it "Let Go and Flow," and I'm probably going to do a course over the book, but I'm probably going to take those 2 chapters and make a course just out of that. Let go and flow, um, because the whole idea is and it's been the most beautiful thing for me to get to a place where I'm able to let go of everything good, everything bad, everything in between. Just let it go because it's not who I am. It has a lot more to do with probably what I'm here to do, but it's not who I am. Who I am, bottom line, is who Father created me to be, to have a relationship with, and that is something that is unique only to me. Yours is unique only to you, and it can't be added to and it can't be taken away. Nothing can be taken away from it. That's the core of who we are. When we can understand that, it's kind of game over. When you understand who you are in Christ, that you can't add to it, you can't take away from it. And it's just a beautiful thing when you get there to be able to let go and then begin to flow with what Father's doing. So flow, it's an acronym. It's a frequency. So I kind of look at it akin to your pace. You know, uh, what is your pace that allows you to kind of drop into that place that gives you peace? And I can guarantee you that for probably 99% of the world, that pace is a whole lot slower than what we're going at. And that when we fully trust and are able to just kind of step back, slow down, we drop into that pace and that place where we just begin to feel the peace of God. That's the frequency that we want to look forward to operate in. That's our pace of peace. And then the L stands for illuminate. That's where God begins to illuminate who you really are. So you got to get to the place first where you can hear. That's when you find that frequency, that pace of peace where you can relax and hear what God's saying. And then you get the illumination of who you really are. He begins to illuminate who you are, all the wonderful things he created you to be that can't be taken away from, that can't be added to. It's just he created you because you are you. So you can say, I am because he created me to be who I am. And I am the only I am of me, Gil Hodges. And who knows, that may not, there may be another name on a white stone somewhere, most likely, right? So that is who I am. And it can't be taken away. And nothing can be added to it. So that's the illumination that we need to understand who we are. And in that illumination, we will also begin to see, what are we here to do? What part of the body of Christ are we here to be? And the one thing that I'll just say it irks me. It's the American dream, this idea that everybody's got to be a leader of a corporation and got to, make, a zillion bucks and all this. It's like, that is such hogwash. There's no way that everybody on the planet can do that. And Jesus even said the poor will always be with you. So is, there's a place where, not that I'm looking to be poor, not that anybody would ever look to be poor, but we need to get to the place where we are able to really honor who we're created to, who we are, and what we're here, what we've been created to do here on this planet, in this body. Because, and I used to give the analogy all the time of, when I was in the Army, I had a rifle, and we had to take that rifle apart, clean it, put it back together. And if I had decided that the smallest part of that rifle was no good, it's like, this is so small, what's that good for? Throw it out. Well, that firing pin was really what made the whole rifle work. And I just threw out the smallest piece, which was the main piece that was needed in order for that whole thing to fire. And I just threw it out because I thought it was insignificant. Like, no one is insignificant. And so in that illuminating process, you get to realize who you really are and what you're here to do. And then the third flow, the O, is for openness, that you begin to open up and to receive all the things that Father wants to give to you to accomplish what you're here to do. We're taught that we got to have money, power, and authority, and a big house, and a nice car, and all this stuff. It's like, what if that has nothing to do with what you're here to do? What if that
Yeah.
stuff actually gets in the way of what you're supposed to do? There's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with any of it. But if it's not what you need to accomplish what you need to do, then why would you want it? Because you're going to find your greatest fulfillment and happiness in stepping into who you're called to be, who you are, and what you're here to do. And that
Yeah.
openness, when you reach that place, when you understand who you are, you naturally just become open. You become open to receive all this. It's the law of attraction. So when you're operating in who you are, that's a positive frequency. You're going to draw the positive things, and you're going to draw the things you're going to attract to yourself. The law of sowing and reaping. You're going to attract to yourself all the things that you need to accomplish what you're here to do. And then the last one is W, is wake. It's the like a boat wake. A boat going through the water is going to create a ripple effect that's going to go out, and it's going to affect everything around it. And that your life is going to have a wake that you leave behind that is going to affect everything around it. It's kind of like the ultimate impact that you're meant to have. And that's the let go of all the things that the world and all your programming has told you you're supposed to be and do. Let go and flow with what God's doing, and you will be as happy as you're going to be. It's the most meaningful place you can find. And so that one I'm definitely going to be doing a course on, and that's 2 chapters in the book, but I'm going to dive really deep into that, and I'm looking forward to it. So
I like that. And just to add a little bit to what you were saying, uh, just to emphasize that a bit, for people who are pondering that in that area, does your calling require you to be a multimillionaire?
yeah, exactly.
You
Everyone
might be
should be
able to get
asking
it
that.
done with no money. You might not need it.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? Honestly, if we had time, we'd go there, but I don't think we have time. But okay, I'm going to get myself in trouble. I believe a lot differently than a lot of people. I believe that the spiritual singularity, God promised that a spiritual singularity was going to come and hit before the technological singularity where AI takes over. He said it was going to hit first. That he gave to me probably 6 or 7 years ago. And I, this even goes along with one of my chapters, I put an expectation on what I thought that would look like. And I've been looking for it. And what Father showed me is that, it's like, Gil, you made that into your own expectation of how you thought that would be fulfilled. What if, Gil, that's already been fulfilled? And it just hit me like a flood, because that spiritual singularity of all the mystics in the heavens bring into the earth, teleportation, and you name it, the ability to do so many things that we can't necessarily do in the physical. AI is going to bring that. And I know so many people are against AI, but what if that's actually the manifestation of what we've been engaging with in the spirit? Just what if? I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying what if. Problem is, as again, human beings, we put our expectations on everything. We demonize things we don't understand. And Jesus did not come as a king like the Jews thought he should, and so they rejected him. Are we going to do the same thing? And I'm not saying that AI is it, but I'm saying it could be, because AI, and especially once quantum computers hit, I mean, we could go into all the details of that, but literally within a week, maybe a month, you put a perfectly running AI with a perfectly running quantum computer, and in a week or a month, they would solve pretty much every problem humanity's ever had. So it's something to think about, and I could go through all the stats with you to explain that, but literally, it would happen. Now it's gradually
It's
going to
interesting.
happen, but it could happen that way.
We're in the middle of a fantastic 30 years, and that's all I'll say. So I
Yeah.
have a question, and this is a question that people asked me a lot when my book came out. And I'd love to hear your answer for this, which is what would you say is your goal with your book? What would you say is the intended result that you're expecting or you're desiring for your book to have on people when they read it?
Okay, this is going to sound a little, and I even say this in the book. It sounds a little audacious, but um, you ever see the movie Lady in the Water? M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
Okay, in that, there's this guy that writes this. He calls it the cookbook, but it's actually a kind of a manifesto. And he writes it, and he actually dies off. But somebody after him picks it up, and makes there's a whole movement in the earth that changes the whole world. And like I said, pretty bold, but at the same time, I believe that people really took the time to understand how powerful their choice is and began to operate in it, it would absolutely be a world changing movement. It really would. Now, I'm sure there's a ton of other books out there that could say the same thing, but none of them have taken off yet to where it's changed the world. And I don't want to put an expectation on the book. I really don't have an expectation, but I also don't want to have an expectation that it wouldn't do that. But just to let it be and let it run its course.
I'll say this. If you don't feel that way about your book, shouldn't even come out. You're supposed to feel like it's the next best thing that's going to
Yep.
revolutionize humanity. If
Yeah.
not, leave it leave it in leave it somewhere else. It doesn't need to be
Yeah.
published if it's not going to change the world.
Right.
If you don't
That's
think it's
good.
going to change the world as the author, leave it alone. So you
That's
have the
good.
perfect mentality for releasing a book, at least in my opinion.
That, that's good. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Well, I we could go deeper into other things, but I feel like that's been a good introduction. So I hope people will buy the book. And what we're looking to do is have a specific launch date. And I'm going to ask as many people as possible to buy as many books as they can buy on that same day, on that first day, because it really helps the algorithms and on Amazon to actually turn that book into something where they start pushing it out to other people. So anyway, hoping that we can get a lot of people on board with it that would be willing to buy the book. So hopefully we can get it arranged where this interview here goes out maybe a day or two before that, and we can add some notes and let people know when the exact date is going to be. But again, shooting for October, sometime between October 15 and the 21st. So.
Awesome. So before we close out, you have any more closing thoughts or any last messages you want to get out about your book?
That I think I've shared just about everything. I know I ended, talking about, hey, I know not. In fact, this book, if I'd picked up this book 20 years ago, I would have been pissed. Reading it, I would have just probably ripped it up and thrown it out because I did not believe I had any choice. Because I was suffering with depression and I could not get out of it. But when the pain got to be so significant, that's when I finally began, I got that epiphany that I have this power of choice. I do not have to be wallowing in this stuff. And I began to choose not to. And a little bit more of a journey than that. I wrote it in my previous book, Living for Ultimate Impact. And, I have my testimony in there. But yeah, it definitely is something that I believe has the power to change our hearts and our lives, and I hope that people will join us and get a book and maybe get 2 or 3 and share it with some other people.
Well, that's great, Gil. I wish you the best in that endeavor.
All right. Well, thank you, Nelson. I appreciate you.
No problem. Well, that's it for this episode. Y'all be blessed.